on February 12th at 6 p.m., and we'll start the meeting. And Robin, I think I'm going to put you on the spot and give it to you. This is your time.
Good evening, everybody. I am Robin Sylvester. I live at 12888 County Road 103 right here in Cross Lake. And Sonia Slack is online tonight, so we will play tag team a little bit. I'll do the first part of the presentation and then ask her to finish up with an area of her expertise. I first want to sincerely say thank you to everybody for their continued dedication, both City Council, Shar, your time, and I know the county's time as well, and the citizens who have stepped up and joined in the dialogue about having absentee ballots processed right here at Cross Lake. Tonight, we'd like to really acknowledge Shar. There's another item on the agenda tonight at 7 to get support for you. We're very happy to see that occurring because I remember when Sonia and I met with you the first time, you had just came off vacation and you had mentioned to us that, you know what, even when I go on vacation, I don't get a vacation because there's nobody to help me out. You get calls, it sounds like you get calls constantly, even with your current workload. So we acknowledge that the position that you all are going to move forward with this afternoon or this evening is super important to support Shar in her current workload. With that being said, tonight, what we have for a goal is to really go over the questions that we have with the open items that we had last month, and then give you all some time to get feedback on those questions that we still have. And we look forward to hopefully having this on the agenda for March and April with an April deadline, no later than April, to make a decision so that we can move forward with the primary in August. So again, thank you all, and Shar, I know this is extra time for you too, so I just wanted to really give a shout out there. The town hall last week already was I felt pretty successful. We had about 30 people, and I know the media presented a summary of the event. Great collaboration and conversation occurred there. Some of the key discussion items were, again, the reasons for our request. One, security and preparedness for the voting systems and the voting roll. Bringing it right here at home, we feel like we'll have a more intimate process. Two, trust and transparency. Focusing on the local attention and a balanced ballot board right here in Cross Lake. Also, the third item was the City Council Canvassing Board, having more confidence and assurance, not that we're saying anything is not well run, but what we are asking is that let's process it right here at home. You know the folks that are handling your absentee ballots and your full process so that you have additional confidence that the election results that you all certified are accurate and true. Additional topics that we talked about last week were about all the new laws that have been incorporated by the last legislative session. Currently, in 2020, our statistics are that 60% of the ballots right now are processed at our county level for the whole county. That's a lot of ballots. That's a lot that the county's taking on for every municipality, every city and township. We recognize that people want to vote this way, but we also have a desire as citizens to bring it locally, and hoping that even turnout here in Cross Lake, even though it's already very high, that turnout is even higher because it's managed right here at home. They can stop in and process their ballot. Another thing about the laws that have actually reduced transparency. We had requested CVR reports in the last couple of years. Those are cast vote records. You don't see the individual voters' ID information. It's really about taking a look at the ballots that were processed and see if there's any anomalies. Are there a lot of ballots going through the machine at any given time? Is there irregularities that you just have another glance at the ballots or the report of the ballots? The legislature actually said that Minnesota no longer is that public data. Our partners in Wisconsin actually have this data, full transparency on their website, but Minnesota has closed these reports as being non-public data.
Robin, was there a rationale given for that?
I can't speak to that, only that they changed it this last.
Why, just that it was changed?
Yes, yep. So again, tonight our goal is to have an open discussion about the outstanding items. Recommend to the council for additional research if we can't. It looks like Ms. Erickson, you're here too tonight, so hopefully there's additional information that is able to be shared either with Shar or Deb this evening as well. If I could, I do have handouts, additional handouts. It looks like you guys in your packet received our high-level overview, but with Shar, the detail that you gave us on budget, we had time to kind of work through that and ask ourselves more questions. If I could hand you these documents.
Absolutely.
All right, on these documents, for folks that don't have a copy, basically it shows a summary at the top is our goals for tonight. Again, is discuss our outstanding items and ask that the council bring back in March or April for a final decision if our answers aren't provided tonight. So basically, we categorized the expenses based on classification. So the first batch of costs that I'd like to talk about is the ballot and postage costs. The sum of the ballot and postage costs that were provided to us come into a sum of $1,729.
Excuse me, Robin.
Yep.
Is there a way we could put that up on the board so that people could see it?
Sure.
TJ, do you think?
Yeah. Try to get it level. Thank you. So as you can see, these are all itemized costs that were provided to us in the bulletin and the packet tonight. We just categorized them a little bit differently based on classification or common cost purpose. So the ballots of 290, labels of 114, pre-printed envelopes for $525, and postage times 2. Because they need a couple of envelopes and postage for $800 to the sum of $1,729. Our questions, outstanding questions are currently the county pays for these costs. Will they continue to pay for those costs? Have we had a discussion with the county to continue to pay for those costs? At the December meeting, it was mentioned by Deb and Tim said that they had never charged municipalities in the past for the ballots. So we're just having that as an open question. Is this truly a cost that the city would have to incur? If yes, are there stipulations or is there agreement that was executed in 2000, or actually in the fall of 23, I believe? Does that need to be amended? So there'd be a contract amendment that we have questions on as well. If no, is there any funding that should follow that task? So if no, meaning the county won't cover those costs, is there any funding that the county currently gets from election allocation that the cost for that ballot should follow, or a portion of it? And then I guess I had an open question. Does the county currently, I just wanted affirmation that the county either charged or did not charge for those costs in the past.
So do you want to ask Deb that now, or
Sure.
how do you want to handle these questions?
Do you want, Deb, would you like her to come up and we can kind of tag team on the questions, or you want to wait till the end?
I can certainly answer questions as you go along, but
If you want to
think
take,
there might be a lot of questions.
if you want to take a desk, go ahead.
And you can use the microphone right there.
Yeah, if you want to, Deb, that'd be awesome. And thank you for coming, by the way.
Push it on. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members. I'm Debbie Erickson. I'm the Administrative Services Director for Crow Wing County. In that capacity, I oversee a variety of functions, one of which includes our elections administration, which I've been doing for just shy of 30 years coming up here in a couple of weeks. So I have a lot of experience in elections. Additionally, just for your information, I am currently the chair of the Minnesota Association of County Officers, the statewide county association that is responsible for functions of auditors, treasurers, recorders, so some of those functionalities. So I have had a close working relationship with municipalities and counties across the state of different sizes, as well as working with the state legislature on a variety of different things. Before I answer this exact question, I do need to clarify one statement that Ms. Sylvester made with regard to the cast vote record report. The legislation that actually passed in 2023 now says if a cast vote record is produced, it is considered public data. There previously was no language in statute around cast vote records, and when some of the requests were coming out, not every type of equipment that is in use across the state can produce a cast vote record automatically. Here in Crow Wing County, the information that, or the equipment that we use does produce a cast vote record. We did produce a cast vote record in 2022, and we did provide that as public data when it was requested. What the law change in 23 has said is that if a cast vote record is produced, it is public data. If a system is not producing a cast vote record and a county chooses not to produce it, it does not need to be made a record, just like any other data practice. If there isn't a record, there's not a record request to request. Additionally, the data that could identify how a voter votes has to be redacted from that point or from that report before it can be provided. So I just wanted to clarify that a little bit.
Good.
With regard to the cost, the questions here with regard to ballot and postage, currently, yes, the county pays for all ballots and all postage for ballots and supplies, materials for absentee voting for state and federal general and primary elections, because statutorily that is a requirement that the county has to do. These are state and federal elections, county level elections. There is an election hierarchy that goes into play. So when there is a state, federal, or county election, the county is the responsible authority for having to administer all absentee voting. So I've heard reference to taking this back to the local level. Just for clarity, the city has never issued absentee ballots for a state or federal election. If the city were holding their absentee voting or holding their election in a standalone year, if you had your elections in the odd year, you would be responsible for all the costs that are associated with absentee voting. So for instance, we have a handful of townships in Crow Wing County who will be having elections in March. Second Tuesday of March is annual township meeting day, and there are a number of townships that continue to have their elections in the March year. Those municipalities, those townships, are fully responsible for administration of absentee voting. They're responsible for the cost of their ballots. They're responsible for the cost of their supplies, for the postage, for all of the things that go along with absentee voting. Because the county is already required to do this service for state and local or state and federal elections, we have chosen not to charge any of the municipalities for August and November elections, or for the March PMP election that's coming up here in a few weeks. If the city were going to do voting of your own, if you were going to do administration of absentee voting, we still, at the county level, are required to do that also. So if a voter were to come to the county office, they would still be told that they can vote absentee ballot at our counter. We cannot tell them that they have to go to the city of Cross Lake. It is another option that you would be providing for your residents. They can come here, or they can go to the county. The county will still be required to have all of the same materials. We're still going to be required to do all the same work. If the city chooses to have an additional location, the extra cost of what that would be, those ballots, those envelopes, that postage, would be the responsibility of the city. Because we don't know how many voters are going to come to the county office versus going to come to the city office. So therefore, we would have to make sure that we have our side covered as well. And I do believe that during the December meeting, Administrator Tim Hool did make note of the fact that our requirement is not alleviated by the city doing absentee voting, and that any additional cost would be absorbed by the city for that purpose.
Well, how would we obtain those ballots? I mean, can we request them from you?
Yes, we would order the ballots, we would procure those ballots, we would order those ballots, we would transfer those ballots to you, the cost that would be associated for that number of ballots. You're going to get the volume discount, which is a good thing. So instead of buying 500 to 1,000 ballots, you're going to be able to get those ballots at a reduced cost. But we're talking a half a cent per ballot at a reduced cost for that purpose.
You were talking about data practices a little bit ago in one report, and I think it was an important report that you're looking for, I believe, Robin. And you said that one part of it has to be redacted. That includes us. If we want to produce that report, we also have to redact that same data?
So, Mr. Chair, Councilmember Herzog, you would not be able to reproduce that report at your local level. So
Okay, that answers my question.
that is produced at the county level, not at the local level.
Okay, thank you.
So Deb, follow-up question, and Shar, so the 1729 is a full cost to the city? Just want to make sure we're clear.
Correct.
Moving forward, okay.
I didn't catch your number, Robin,
The
I'm
full
sorry.
$1,729,
Oh, 17.
it is a cost to city
City.
of Cross Lake. And Sonia, do you have any questions?
I don't think so. I just would make a comment about the CBR report. Let's write my note here. Nationally, when people were asking for those, they were given to show the order that they were received through the machine. And they were looking for anomalies in the tallies. So the change in law says you can't have the timestamps on there, so basically they're gonna scramble the report, which is what we got for 2022. It was technically called a CBR report, but it was all mixed up, so it wasn't what we were looking for.
All right, thank you, Sonia. The second item on the list of questions, so we bucketed the next category as computer cost estimates. As it comes on the screen here, Shar did a nice job on a designated computer and a cost of Adobe Office 365. We were assuming the laser printer and then the label printer, as well, for a total summation of $2,405. The only question that we had with this, because we recognize there needs to be a designated computer for SVRS work, but can that computer be used throughout the year for other work? Or does it specifically have to be for election work?
No, it can be used for other things.
Awesome.
But during the election, this would need to be at the counter.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. We just wanted to acknowledge that it's an asset that's available for the city to use for other purposes after the election. Okay.
How often would it have to be replaced? Updated?
I think it depends how much it's used, but we usually, I think, have a cycle of 3 years on our computers. And just, you have the Adobe and Office as a one-time, those are annual subscriptions.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if I didn't put an
Yeah,
annual.
I know.
I had an annual column, but I thought, so those two, is the full 300 for each annual, or is it subscription less every year after?
No, it's
It's the full 300?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. All right. The third item then is the big one, right, for labor. And so I know Sonia was able to talk to you briefly today. We're not quite sure if we have all your numbers accurately represented here. So we'll kind of go through them, and if you have contribution, that would be help if we missed the mark on your visit today. So on the meeting notice, it looked like you had a sum of $27,876 for the estimated cost for labor. It sounded like, and even in the notes, Shar, it said absentee ballot board wasn't included in there. So the first section, we weren't sure You had mentioned you had done a calculation based on the ballots were 863 in 2020 that needed to be processed as absentee. There were 2 people, we're assuming party balance on that, so 2 people to process those. And then the first column on your left here, this 25 cents, was, I think, a quarter of an hour, so it's 15 minutes, sorry. It was about minutes. So you were mentioning 15 minutes to process one ballot. So then we calculated the hours for general election to be 432 hours, for primary 432, at a $15 an hour wage rate, that would be about $12,945. So,
And I think it was 15 minutes coming, or like sending one out, 15 minutes to return. And
Okay.
I think that's on the short side. I think actually it's like a 30-minute to 60-minute per ballot, but I used the shorter side to determine my numbers.
okay,
But it could go up to an hour to handle one ballot.
okay. So we weren't sure, so I did a second column with an estimated 5 minutes, because I thought, I guess, the scope for when the ballot handling starts and finishes, we had that a little different. So we thought 5 minutes to look at a ballot that comes in, and then it would be $144, and then $15 an hour. So we came in at a $4,300, but that makes a big difference when you're talking about when our start and finish times are different. So then our question would be, are there any staff time that are currently paid by the city included in your 15 minutes handling or an hour handling the ballot where you wouldn't need extra labor funds?
I think maybe Debbie should explain the process, because, I mean, obviously, we haven't done absentee balloting, so I'm imagining, a ballot coming in, you're checking it in, you're checking it on the computer, you're checking the name. So maybe, Debbie, if you could give us an example of what it takes to bring a ballot in or send one out?
Sure, if you'd like me to do that, I certainly can. I'm going to talk about 2 different types of ballot processing. I haven't heard if the city is interested in just having, and there are 2 ways that you can go about offering the service to your residents as well. One way is to be a secondary location during what we call the early vote period, the 18 days before Election Day, where voters can come and place their ballot directly into the tabulator. There's that functionality. You could be a early vote center for the 46 days before Election Day, where voters would have the ability to come in starting that 46th day before, vote using the multiple envelope method, and that those are then processed by an absentee ballot board. Or you could choose to do it the full absentee piece, which would be mailing out ballots to voters who are requesting them to be mailed to them, as well as serving those who come in person during that full 46 days. Each one of those processes takes a different amount of time. And depending on which process and what that voter is there for, it can be anywhere from 5 minutes to start the process to an hour or more per ballot, depending on what you're dealing with from start to finish. So I want to talk first about if you were going to be a location that offered additional location for voters to come, fill out their ballot, and put it directly in the machine. You're just going to be open for, under current law, the 18 days before Election Day, where a voter can come in and vote early voting, another early voting location. This is probably your shortest amount of time that you would have with any voter interaction as far as the amount of time that would be taken. In this instance, the voter is going to come in, they'll fill out an application form. The application form would then be, the staff would have to utilize the SVRS, the statewide voter registration system, to look that voter up, make sure their information is matching, answer any questions, or figure out any issues that they can't have from reading the writing on the application, if you will. Enter that application into the SVRS system, print the labels that are required to go on the application, have the voter sign the oath, provide them instructions on a ballot, and watch and observe while they are in the voting booth, and then placing their ballot into the tabulator. This is very similar to an Election Day point of contact. So like when you go in to vote, it takes a little bit longer, because instead of just giving your name and they're looking you up on the poll pad and hitting enter and printing, it still has to be looked and entered into SVRS. So this transaction is probably going to take you 15 minutes, start to finish, of staff time. This is your shortest interaction because there's not an after vote point of contact with that ballot. That ballot has already been placed into the tabulator and it's already been tabulated. If you have a circumstance where a voter comes in during the time period of 46 days until 18 days before, where they can vote in person, they want to vote here, but it's not time to actually put it into the tabulator yet, they have to utilize the multiple envelope method. Again, they fill out the application. Again, the staff person is going to enter that into SVRS, verify all that information. Now they're going to print 3 labels. They're going to affix those labels onto 3 different envelopes. They're going to provide the instructions to the voter. The voter is going to go into the voting booth and vote, place their ballots into those envelopes, those series of envelopes, and your staff person needs to serve as the witness for that voter, because when you vote by absentee ballot, when you vote by absentee ballot, you must have a witness. So there's that before vote contact and after vote point of contact there. Then that ballot goes into a secure container. At the end of the day, it needs to get sorted and alphabetized to make sure there's an application that matches with that ballot. They need to get stored until the absentee ballot board meets. Now, by law, your absentee ballot board has to meet either once every 5 days or once every 3 days, depending on how close we are to the election. When the absentee ballot board meets, staff must run a report to verify the number of ballots that the ballot board is being given. Staff also must verify that the information, that the number on the report matches what comes back after the ballot board has reviewed it. And then those ballots, again, have to go to a secure location until they can be opened and processed. Once the timeline for opening and processing happens, you have to touch those ballots again, and then you're going through that absentee ballot board process to open and process and tabulate those votes. In that instance, it's probably going to take anywhere from, if you look at the full package, that's an hour of time that it takes from start to finish for the number of times that that has to be done. So that's why it can be anywhere from, I'd say, a minimum of 15 minutes of staff time to a maximum of an hour.
Question, 2 things. Security, basically. How secure, where does it have to be stored? Does it have to be in a locked room? So everything, the machines, the boxes, everything has to go into a storage, secure facility.
Yes, everything must be kept secure before, during, and after voting. So you need to have secure access that can be keyed so that nobody but your elections staff has access to. This includes your law enforcement. This includes your janitorial staff. Nobody else can have access to that location other than your election staff. You must keep any voted ballots under secure lock and key. You must keep any unvoted ballots under lock and key. And your tabulating equipment also must be kept under lock and key every day as well. So that would have to be moved in and out as far as wherever your storage location would be. Shar and I did do a bit of a walkthrough when I was able to visit with her here before, just to look at a logistics standpoint of things. If you were to place your tabulator in the hall where you would be able to utilize it, because I know on election day, I believe you use this room as your polling place, but from her desk, she cannot keep a viewpoint of this room. So you wouldn't be able to utilize this room for absentee voting because it's not in viewpoint of her desk. So you're going to be moving this stuff to make sure it's kept under lock and key all the time.
Can ballot board members be volunteers? And if so, how are they verified or vetted?
So ballot board members are election judges, are trained election judges. Now, they're either paid by the city or election judges can choose to serve voluntarily without compensation. Ballot board members have one job. They are provided the ballots by the clerk. They review the envelope and the application to make sure that the voter's ID number matches and that the voter has completed all of their information correctly and that the witness has completed all their information correctly. They then say, yes, we both agree to that, and they accept that, or they say, no, we don't agree with that, and they reject that. That ballot then, if it's rejected, goes back to the clerk, who then has to go through the rejected ballot process and do another 30-minute process to reissue those ballots. Ballot board members are not responsible for moving materials, keeping any materials under lock and key. That is only done by staff, and only staff, hired staff with city email addresses can access SVRS.
Thank you.
Okay?
So Deb, on that, so much of what you explained on both options 1 or 2 has to be done by the city staff that have access to the SVRS.
Correct.
So that goes back to my cost estimate. Are the staff time included in our cost estimate of the 27,876?
That's Char's question. I wouldn't know that.
I'm just wondering, because it's important cost, because we would want you to cost. Is staff time included in your estimate on labor? That's all included in our staff time. This is all staff time. This is not election judge costs at all? Okay.
Is this for the whole kit and caboodle, the whole 46 days? From start to finish, or is this the 18 days in the machine, or the multiple envelopes for 46 days?
So, okay, so I think what you're trying to get at is that if the city staff is already working, this is just incorporated into their day's work.
Correct.
It's not additional money.
It is a cost, so when you want the accounting on whether it's the cemetery or you want the accounting on your elections, you want a full cost of your elections, but it's not a new cost because you're going to pay the staff salaries already.
Right.
That's what I was trying to get at. And my apology, Sonia and I were trying to figure out, okay, where's our election judge costs in here? They must not be. Is that what you're saying, Shar? In either of the full 27,876?
The 27,000 does also include those extra days, the extra
Sure.
hours that you need to be open for the primary and
Sure, so it'd
general.
be the
So I
Saturday.
just bundled it all
Okay.
in one number.
So no election judges are in that 27,000, that city time, including extra time Shar or other city staff would need to be here for the Saturday and Sunday. Okay, then my comparison doesn't do any justice. I think we have some work to do to reconcile that. So disregard, again, important that we all get apples to apples. Disregard the 12,000, the 43, and my 17 or the 21, because our assumption was this was election judges, and this here is only city staff time. Okay. Thank you for that. That's why it's super important we have more time to work through some of these questions, and you guys don't have to make a decision tonight, but very, very critical and helpful.
Let me just ask a question though, Robin. So Shar, on a regular election, what does it cost the city to do an election? $7,500 or something, is that right?
I don't know, Dave, off the top of my head. I'd have to look at the budget or an old
But
election.
so
I just
what
really,
my question is that piggybacked on the 27,000?
no.
No?
Well, yeah, that would be in addition to this. Election day
Election day
plus
is
training.
additional.
This does not include training. This
Okay.
does not include
Okay.
election day, correct.
I thought we had budgeted 5,000 an election.
This year we did.
Yeah, I don't remember. off
So
the
we
top of
ended
my
up
head.
budgeting 15,000.
I don't remember.
I think that's
I
correct.
think it's, yeah.
I recall that.
One more question. I'm looking at a separate document here that shows the cost of the city of $41,800, and I notice labor is not complete in this one either. So this one would also have to be updated, am I correct?
It's just
That's
the cost.
That's
of
your
hardware.
document,
That's just the
Char.
cost of hardware.
Well,
So
Labor's in there too.
the labor amount on that,
Labor's in there.
the labor amount should be on that document of 27,876.
yeah,
We were trying to kind of figure out if we could reconcile with Shar because we didn't understand what was all included. So that number is on your sheet.
yeah,
Okay.
so that's what I was talking about, that 27,000 has to be adjusted. And then we still also have to add in the cost of the election itself, election day is on top of that.
Right. I didn't add that because that's something we have to do anyway.
Yeah, no, I understand, but
Yeah.
I think it'd be kind of nice to see a total figure, because right now, we're probably pushing $45,000 of added cost that we did not budget for.
So I think council member, I think it's really important that we take the labor cost and identify if it's costs that are already paid for by the city and what's additional. So your overtime for Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, whatever that might be, that's an additional cost. And additional cost for your election judges and ballot board. We absolutely should have that itemized for you all.
Yeah.
So I would suggest that we look at labor and do internal costs that are already captured by the city. So what is already being paid for by the city, but it's an election cost, additional cost for labor. So SHAR's Saturday, Sunday, an additional cost to election judges and ballot board.
Yeah.
That would give you, yep, at least from absentee, then you're also asking for the cost of the regular day.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
because we're looking at the whole system. The whole issue needs to be addressed.
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Erickson, I remember earlier you were saying there's a hierarchy to the elections, that the county is going to be doing the federal and state elections anyways, correct? Regardless
correct.
if we do this or not.
Correct.
So the only elections that we would be doing with this new system would be local elections only,
So
right?
let me clarify, I'm
Okay.
sorry if I didn't clarify that correctly. The current way the city has your elections, you have your elections on the same cycle as every state general election. So your election, your city offices are only on the November even year ballot. However, there are also county, state, and federal offices on that same ballot. If you were choosing to do absentee ballot administration, you're doing absentee ballot administration for all of those offices,
Okay.
for the residents of the city of Cross Lake. And because it is in a state general election year, you can't just say, well, we're only going to do it in November. We're not going to do it for the primary. We're only going to do it in
Gotcha.
November when our offices are on the ballot. You can't make a voter go to two different places in the same election cycle.
Excellent. Any further questions on cost?
Is there any feedback during this meeting?
I think after the presentation.
All right, thank you for that great dialogue. Looks like we are on the election equipment. And Sonia, you're going to take the election equipment?
Yes. Can everybody hear me?
Yes?
Okay. Okay, on SHAR's expense sheet, it looks like a new tabulator would be $10,772, and there are some annual costs associated with that, the annual preventative maintenance, battery replacement, which happens every 4 years, and the tabulator programming, which would actually be done for every election. The statute does also allow, I thought I'd just throw in, I came across this, it allows for you to lease a machine. But at the town hall last Tuesday, we had a person ask, are we required to buy a tabulator? And I don't know for sure. To answer that question, we would need to verify that Cross Lake has officially adopted the use of an electronic ballot counter. Remember, the new law under statute 20658 says that a city has adopted, it details how a city that has adopted the use of an electronic ballot counter will lose the ability to ever stop using it. It also says the municipality must give approval before an electronic voting system may be adopted or used in the municipality under the authority of the section. And that's talking about if a county says that you must do it, you have to approve it. So I'm not sure about that language, but I'll go on. There's a few more points. 203B081 says the county auditor must provide each polling place with an electronic ballot counter unless it has not adopted use of one. 20659 says, quote, payment for an electronic voting system may be provided for in the manner deemed in the best interests of the political division adopting and purchasing it. Adopting and purchasing. Does that mean you adopt it when you purchase it? We'd like to have the council request in writing clarification from the proper state election authority, just what legal options Cross Lake has in this matter, If it is determined we do have options, we can address them in a later meeting. Part of your decision-making process has to be that you have all of the options laid out clearly for debate. The agreement for election equipment that we have with the county, signed August 8th, says that the county agrees to purchase and maintain election equipment, including vote tabulators, assisted voting devices, and electronic rosters for all polling places in Crow Wing County for all elections. Number 7 says the agreement is in effect until terminated by either party with 30-day notice.
Do we have a tabulator?
Pardon me?
Do we already have a tabulator, or do we use electronic voting?
Yes,
Okay.
and the county stores that, they have it at their location.
Yes. And can I add 2 things to this? Just briefly. Number 1, you have more than 500 registered voters in your city. Therefore, under federal law, you are required to have an assisted voting technology device. This is a device that can provide an audio ballot and a function for voters with disabilities to be able to mark their ballot privately and independently. That is non-negotiable, whether a ballot is counted by hand or whether it is counted by the tabulator. In Crow Wing County, again, because of the hierarchy of the election, your ballots would have to be programmed to be utilized by the same equipment that Crow Wing County utilizes. And in Crow Wing County, the equipment we use is a combination tabulator and assistive voting device machine. Now, I did mention to Shar there is another option. If you were only going to do the envelope method, there is another option that instead of having the full tabulator here, you could purchase another piece of equipment that is called an OmniBallot tablet, which allows for that AVT functionality. The ballots would not be able to be put in the tabulator here. They would be transported to the county to be voted or to be counted because, yes, utilization of electronic voting equipment is considered adoption of the voting equipment, and your votes will still have to be counted by a tabulator. There is no option to vote by or to have a hand count. And I believe the Secretary of State's office had spoken with Ms. Slack about that earlier this year when looking for this information.
So the county is already storing a machine for?
The county owns a machine that Cross Lake uses for election day voting, yes.
But if we decided to do our own absentee ballots, then they would charge us?
You would
for
need
it.
to have another piece of equipment because we have to test the machine that you use for election day purposes at least 3 days before the election, and that has to be completely sealed up then until election day here in the polling place. Because absentee voting goes until 5 o'clock the day before the election, we would not have the ability to seal that polling place machine with the election day tabulation that we would be able to need to do that. That's why you need to have a second piece of equipment for absentee voting.
Deb, do you have any extra machines since there are certain precincts in Crow Wing that went mail-in only?
When we had precincts that went to mail-in voting, we have not had any new mail-in voting machines since we switched to the current machines that we currently have. We do not have any extra machines. We have one machine for every polling place and one machine that we use for early voting at the courthouse. That is all that we have.
Thank you.
Otherwise, we'd be happy to lease you one if we did, yes.
I'm guessing this is an expensive piece of gear?
A new equipment piece, I believe, is around a little over $10,000. There are refurbished options around $7,000, I believe, is $7,000 to $8,000 is what that cost is.
What's the life expectancy of the used one compared to the new one?
You know, the life expectancy of any system, we anticipate it can get you anywhere from 8 to 10 election cycles is kind of what we are hoping for. So every 15 years or so. The used equipment is hard to say. I wouldn't know how long it had already had shelf life before it came to you.
So once we have our own, then we just store it here, we just keep it there.
Correct.
Sonia, do you have anything else?
I just wanted to say, I did not talk to the Secretary of State's office. We weren't even discussing about no machine. That just came up at the town hall. But I did not talk to Stella about that.
Okay.
Good information.
That is all the questions that we have tonight. We thank again everybody for their time and effort on this very critical activity. Thanks.
Thanks, Robin. Let's open it up to public comment.
Yeah.
Hi, Mayor, City Council members. I would just thank you for allowing me to speak. Just a minor point that one of my medical directors used to remind me of is it's not free, those 432 hours, because we already pay the city clerk, doesn't mean that she wasn't already having something to do for those 432 hours. So somebody else is having to cover those 432 hours if he or she, the city clerk, is now doing absentee ballots. So I understand there's some movement afoot to
No, that's
expand.
understood. That's understood.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, so just to say, well, we don't have to worry about that cost because we have somebody here, it means that that person here is going to not be doing something else that they may be, thank you.
Yep. Bob?
I was just asking if there was going to be time for public comment.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay, I'm
that's
sorry.
right
I assumed you had a public comment.
I do have just one quick question. So several times during the presentation, I was hearing "we." The presenter was saying "we." So if we could define who "we" is on that. And then if the county has to, do they have to duplicate all of this as well, regardless?
I'm not sure if I know what you mean duplicate, but yes,
I can explain.
Okay.
So it sounds like we would have a choice to come to the city of Cross Lake to do an absentee ballot, but we also would have a choice to come to the county.
correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
That's very true. The county is the absentee voting location for the whole county, for any voter in the county. That is the absentee voting location. So even if individual cities choose to do their own absentee administration, voters are still going to have that choice to come to the city or to go to the county.
Okay.
So what you're saying, if somebody goes up to the county and votes at your office, they will not be counted here, so our numbers here.
Your numbers here will never match your total results because whatever voting is done at the county is going to be counted at the county.
And you will tabulate that when you receive ours. Okay.
And no results can be released until all absentee results and all polling place results are combined. So it wouldn't be a case of, these are the county's absentee results, these are the city hall's absentee results, and these are election day results. There is one set of results that is released. Now, your abstract, and as the canvassing board, you have one job, and that is to certify the results of the election. The canvassing board is not responsible for doing the work of absentee administration. The canvassing board does not do voter registration. The city does not do voter registration. Voter registration is done at the county level. So the city's canvass report will have a list of how many voters voted in person and how many voted by absentee ballot. What you won't ever find in the official documentation is a breakdown of who voted in person and who voted by mail. That is not a statistic that is kept in any way, shape, or form. And I know some of the documentation that the group has been putting out showed A's, M's, and P's for polling place, absentee, and mail. M is only used for a voter who lives in a mail-only precinct. As Robin was saying, we have several precincts in Crow Wing County. 18 of our 63 precincts vote exclusively by mail. And those 18 precincts, a person's voter history in those precincts will have an M listed because they are in a mail ballot precinct. Now, that's whether they come to the county and vote in person, because they all have that option as well, but it's still going to show their voter history as being an M. And we're trying to work with the Secretary of State's office to have a little bit better functionality with that, so just because their profile is a mail ballot precinct, it doesn't always have to show as an M if they choose to vote in person. Additionally, the information that they provided with regard to the percentages, I'm not sure where their data came from. Again, it's not from the Secretary of State's office. It's not from, I shouldn't say it's not from the Secretary's office. It may be, but it's from a Secretary's office at a point in time. They did not get their data off the official abstract, which is what the results of each election cycle are. So in 2020, for instance, which I don't point to 2020 because it's an anomaly year. So it is very difficult to say that 2020 is the benchmark for anything that we are talking about. In 2022, the city of Cross Lake had, for the general election in November, had 374 people who voted by absentee ballot. That was 23% of the total number of voters voted by absentee ballot. There were 1,265 residents who chose to vote in person in 2020. Now, if I back that up to the state primary election in August in 2022, 37 people voted by absentee ballot. You had 312 who voted on election day. So that was 1.8% of the total eligible population voted by absentee ballot. And if I back this up to August of 2016, the last presidential before the anomaly year, in 2016 in the general election, you had 429 people who voted by absentee ballot and 1,197 who voted on election day, or 26% of the population voted by absentee ballot that year. However, in the primary, 3 people voted by absentee ballot. So you can see where the cost per ballot is going to be different for every election. The work per election does not change because you still need to program the equipment, you still need to prepare the ballots, you still will be required to be open all the same hours, whether you serve 3 voters or whether you serve 402. So it is a matter of, just so that you are aware when you are putting these things in motion, you have to be open the hours that are required by statute, regardless of how many folks show up to vote. And I'm not looking forward to the expanded Saturday, Sunday already myself, because I know we're going to have costs associated with that we're not going to be able to recoup, because all of my staff that I have to have be there are going to be there for very few voters who are going to come to see us every one of those election days.
Can I just clarify one thing with you? So regardless of someone votes absentee, mail-in, votes here, votes in the county, you might not be able to differentiate where or, by what method they voted, but we would still have an overall figure of who voted from Cross Lake.
Correct.
Okay.
Your abstract that you certify as the canvassing board after every election, your abstract tells you exactly how many people voted in person and how many people voted by absentee ballot.
Okay.
That abstract is your official record of the results and the votes that were cast in Cross Lake, and it's something that has to be kept forever. That's a permanent record that always has to be kept, because that's where that official data lies. The Secretary's office, that data is only good at the time that it is compiled at that point, because people move. So as soon as an election is over, we have to update all of that information continuously. So people move, people die, whatever it might be. That's why those abstracts, that's what has the most current and accurate data.
So is there a needed approval from the county or the Secretary of State in order to hold to
Nope.
handle the absentee?
Nope, so the county has no authority to tell you yes or no. This is strictly your decision. And the only thing that has to be done is there is a list of technical requirements that have to be met for the access to SVRS, which I did provide to Shar, and I think she's already clarified with your IT team that that is the case. So we would be coming and providing, I would come and provide Shar and her staff with training on the statewide voter registration system. We would set your profile up in SVRS to say that City of Cross Lake does their own administration for absentee voting. And then that would be handled at every election. That would show on, you'd have to post on your website that your hours for absentee voting are a certain date and time. And we would post that on our website as well to let folks know that they can come here or come to us.
Sonia, do you have something to say?
Yes, I just had a question, Deb, if you've got what does your figures show for 2020 absentee ballots?
So 2020 absentee ballot, for the 2020 primary election, there were 104 people who voted by absentee and 238 who voted in person. In the general election, 776 voted by absentee and 1,054 voted in person. So 42% of the total voters voted by absentee ballot in 2020. Again, 2020 being the anomaly that it was, we don't use it for trend data, but you can see that you're usually in that 25 to 30% range, and we do expect countywide. Countywide, we have about a 28% number of folks countywide who vote by absentee ballot. In 2022, we had 28%, we had 25% in 2018.
And of course, our point was that the legislature made a couple of laws that are fair to predict are going to bring in many more absentee ballots with the automatic absentee registration and the permanent absentee ballot. So you can forecast that number is going to go up.
Permanent absentee has already been a thing. The permanent absentee balloting has already been in law for a number of years. The difference being that voters who wanted to be on the permanent absentee list were automatically sent an application for every election cycle that they then had to send back to us for us to send them their ballot. The only change that the legislation made this year or this past year was to change that from having to send those folks an application to sending them directly a ballot because they've already submitted an application saying they always wanted to receive an absentee. So permanent absentee is not new. That has always been in play for a number of years. Automatic voter registration is new. That will be for any resident, any person who does a driver's license renewal that includes citizenship documentation. So if you think of the three different types of registrations of driver's licenses that Minnesota has. We have Real ID, Enhanced ID, and a regular driver's license. Only that percentage of the voters who are submitting an Enhanced ID or a Real ID qualify for automatic voter registration. Anybody who's just applying for a regular driver's license does not meet the criteria for that. So we do believe it is going to increase the number of voter registration, doesn't automatically translate to absentee voting.
So
Deb,
we're-
can I ask one question? Sure. How many other cities in the state do this?
There are a number of cities that do their own absentee balloting administration, and it is varied. It varies from small cities to large cities. Majority of them in the metro area do their own administration just simply from the volume of locations to be able to have more than one location for that purpose. Unfortunately, there's not a good, easy list. I tried to find that information for you all so you could have, phone a friend kind of thing to say, hey, what do you guys do? But I haven't been able to find a way to get a good list of ones that actually do it.
Can you name a couple?
I know East Grand Forks is one. They were recently in the media, and I mentioned this in December. They recently had said that they've been doing this for a number of years, and they're thinking of not doing it because of all the extra hours and requirements that are coming into play for that. The other ones, I know like any of the City of Elk River does, and I believe the City of St. Cloud does as well. Now, St. Cloud is a little bit different. They have 3 counties in St. Cloud, so they administer absentee ballots for 3 counties within that city as well.
Thanks.
Okay, we're running short of time. Are you expecting this resolution approved tonight? No. Yeah. I'm not even going to read it.
Based on our questions that we had with the costs, we thought it would be helpful to take the time to get those finalized and come back in March and ask for your consideration.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
And can I just mention one thing about the timeline? I appreciate Robin's comment about getting it done in March. From that perspective, beginning of May, it's going to be the drop dead deadline for you to let us know that you're going to do administration of absentees so that we can get that updated into the Secretary of State's system so that you meet the primary deadline. May 7th is the deadline that we have to provide notice of where those absentee locations will be. You're also going to need time to procure your equipment, and I don't know if you've had the conversation as far as how long it would take for that to get to you. But I think if you're doing a refurbished machine, they probably already have it available. So beginning of May is the absolute drop dead of when you have to make that decision.
Thank you so much for being here tonight,
Yeah,
Deb.
thanks
You're
a lot.
welcome.
Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Yep.
Can I make a comment?
Sure.
I'm Rebecca Wharton. I live at 13402 Hidden Valley Lane, and I'm also an election officer for 10 years. And I would like to just point out that neither the group or the state have found any fraud or misconduct in Crow Wing County. And the legislation that's been passed will still have to be followed. Moving absentee ballot doesn't seem to change that. And Crow Wing County is still going to have to be doing the work. So I would respectfully ask the council not to add $50,000 to the budget for a partial solution to a non-existent problem.
Thank you.
Dave, prior to closing, can we get the answer to the we? 'Cause there-
Oh, yeah, who was the "we"? Robin, can you answer that? Did she go?
No, she's right there.
Oh, I didn't see her.
If I referenced it, it was probably for Sonia and I. We've done a lot of the research and done a lot of stakeholder outreach, so that is the we. Thanks.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Robin. Make a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We're going to take this